miss your old familiar friends, but waiting just around the bend. Everywhere you look, there's a heart, there's a heart.
Naoya Inoue versus Emmanuel Rodriguez. Let's talk about the fight. Now, this is a fight that worked out much as I anticipated. You know, I didn't figure that in spite of Emmanuel Rodriguez ahead of the fight, in spite of him being an undefeated champion who's never been down and has never been out, that still doesn't put him on the level of a Naoya Inoue. That Inoue is a cut above your run-of-the-mill champion.
A big cut.
Thus, I didn't give Emmanuel Rodriguez very good odds to be able to stand up to what is the power, the monstrous power of Naoya Inoue. Power that he has carried throughout 3 consecutive weight classes. Thus, the performance itself seemed more like a reiteration of things I already knew. I'll say that Emmanuel Rodriguez went out there and did what he could do. That at least in the first round, he gave it a spirited effort. He tried his best. But even in that first round, you could see a difference in power, a difference in accuracy, a difference in precision between both combatants. That as Emmanuel Rodriguez is trying to unload, trying to fight fire with fire against Naoya Inoue, his shots are being caught on the gloves, or Inoue is getting under and or around those shots and countering in kind. And when he does, you can see the difference in power. You can see the difference in the accuracy, the overall boxing acumen of Naoya Inoue compared to Emmanuel Rodriguez, who was about as solid a guy as you could have been asking him to fight. You know, Emmanuel Rodriguez, he was a guy who has never been down, never been out, never lost a fight, currently a undefeated world champion. In spite of all of that,
Still wasn't up to scratch.
Inoue is simply a different breed of fighter. And if you have any doubts about his boxing acumen or any reservations about his power, all you gotta do is take a look at the expression on Emmanuel Rodriguez's face as Inoue landed the body shot that dropped him a second time. Ain't calling this guy the monster for no reason. In the sport of boxing, you got multi-division champions. You know, your 2 division champions, 3 division champions in the case of Naoya Inoue. You got those kinds of guys, and even amongst those kinds of guys seldom exhibit the same level of dominance that he's exhibiting in what is his 3rd weight class. That he's opposite an undefeated champion, and that guy doesn't stand a chance. You don't give this guy a shot in the dark of being able to stand up to Naoya Inoue's power. Ladies and gentlemen,
That's an elite.
that's a pound-for-pound fighter if I've ever seen one. So as Naoya Inoue becomes a full-fledged world champion in what is his 3rd weight class, he is thereby reintegrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list and emerges in the number 6 spot ahead of Gallo Estrada, Kosei Tanaka, Julian Williams, and Daniel Roman, effectively bumping off Alexander Vosdin, the WBC and lineal light heavyweight champion who sat in the number 10 spot in the most danger of being bumped off. Those of you out there that are older subscribers to the channel who might have been following the list in the past might remember that Naoya Inoue did have a spot on the list, but he was ejected upon moving up to the bantamweight division per the rules that govern the list. That no fighter, absent of a world title, can maintain a rank on the list. The list is only for winners and only for champions. Thus, up until the point Naoya Inoue procured a full-fledged world title, the version of a title that can be unified with that of a rival organizations, that up until he procured a full-fledged world title, he would not be eligible for a rank. Well, he has effectively procured the IBF Bantamweight World title in what is his 3rd weight class, thereby meeting the criteria and qualifications to be reintegrated into the list. And he's seated behind Leo Santa Cruz. I'm sure some of you are going to have some questions about that. Well, look, both Leo Santa Cruz and Naoya Inoue are 3 division champions. They've been full-fledged 3 division champions, 3 weight classes to both of them. But Leo's got a more robust body of work than Naoya Inoue. So in order for Inoue to move past him, he's got to unify a title. Now, it just so happens that he's not far away from doing that. We all know that he's going to be squaring off against Nonito Donaire, who is in possession of the WBA Bantamweight title. So if and when the fight goes down, if Naoya Inoue emerges the victor, he will then move past Leo Santa Cruz. as they will have both been full-fledged champions in 3 weight classes, but upon Inoue unifying, he would then be in possession of more world titles than Leo, thereby giving him the precedence to move ahead of him, per the rules that govern the list. So I'll say congratulations to Naoya Inoue for becoming a full-fledged world champion in a 3rd weight class by unseating Emmanuel Rodriguez, and I expected no less. The fight worked exactly as I expected it to. That Emmanuel, he's about as solid a guy as guys come, but at the end of the day, Naoya Inoue is a cut above that kind of a fighter. We then turn to the fight between Ivan Baranchyk, what was then the IBF's 140-pound champion Ivan Baranchyk, who was also undefeated, against his mandatory challenger to the IBF title, Josh Taylor. Now this is a fight that gave us more to reflect upon post-fight, more so than Inoue's fight, because Inoue's fight seemed like it was a foregone conclusion that Inoue was going to starch that guy, whereas this fight, it seemed to have a higher probability
Of being competitive. Relatively speaking.
So let's talk about what we saw in the fight. You know, ahead of the fight, I figured Josh has got a height advantage, Josh has got a reach advantage, and Josh knows how to be a moving target. He's got great in and out game. So he's got no need to fight the fight within striking distance of Ivan. If anything, he's going to fight this fight on the fly to keep Ivan out of his sweet spot. That's what I figured before the fight. But having seen the fight, it appears that that's the opposite of what Josh Taylor decided to do. Josh Taylor decided to fight this fight in the pocket. You see, in my prediction video, I talked about how these two guys, while they have different physical dimensions, they both just so happen to have the same sweet spot. That same sweet spot being mid-range to inside. That's where the both of them do their best work. That's where the both of them get off their hardest punches. And what's curious is about the performance on the part of Josh Taylor, who I picked to win the fight, and I picked him to win on points. So I got that right. But as far as the aesthetic of the fight, it isn't what I expected. I didn't expect Josh to spend that much time in the pocket with Ivan because it's risky. Why give up your height to this guy? Why give up your reach to this guy? You know, why do it? Why fight the fight within striking distance of Ivan? I can only make the inference that maybe Josh really wanted to put on a show. Maybe Josh wanted to put a stamp on it. Maybe he didn't want to fight a kind of complacent, outside kind of fight, you know, tedious kind of fight. Maybe that's why he did it. Maybe this was Josh's way of showing his moxie. But one way or another, you have to wonder if it's foolhardy to give up the physical advantages that he had over Ivan to fight him in the pocket.
Why is that?
Now, based on what we saw, we can clearly see that Josh is the better fighter in the pocket. In the pocket, he is the more dominant fighter. He is the more offensively and defensively sound fighter compared to Ivan. That he was able to slip and slide around Ivan's shots relatively comfortable while landing shots of his own. Shots downstairs, shots upstairs.
He was fluid.
So Josh definitely showed that in the pocket, mid-range to inside, even though that's Ivan's sweet spot, that also happens to be Josh's sweet spot. And in that sweet spot, out of those two guys, Josh is the better, more dominant fighter in the fight, the more multi-layered, multifaceted fighter of the two fighters in the fight. Not just on the move, not just on the outside, shooting long-range punches to keep a guy out. That deep in the pocket, Josh is still the better fighter in the fight. But the reason you gotta wonder if that was foolhardy is because he is giving up his height to a smaller fighter. He is giving up his height advantages, he is giving up his reach advantages, where he could fight a fight,
a long-range fight,
comfortably on the outside. He chose not to do that. And you might get away with doing that against Ivan Baranchyk, who's a straightforward kind of guy. I mean, he's a solid fighter. You know, I don't take anything away from him. But as far as his approach, it's easy to read. You know what kind of fighter he is. He is not a multi-layered, nuanced kind of guy.
He's not.
You might get away with giving up your height and giving up your reach against a guy like that. But against Regis Prograis, who is a far bigger puncher than Ivan Baranchyk, can Josh Taylor afford to take those chances? Because that's who he's got to fight next. And it's for this reason that you have to wonder, was it foolhardy on Josh's part to give up his height to a smaller fighter? Because I'm not sure he can afford to do that against Regis Prograis. Regis Prograis, who packs a far nastier punch than anything Ivan Baranchyk is packing. That if you decided to take chances with Ivan, are you going to decide to take those same chances with Regis? Because it's a very different situation if you do that with Regis than it is if you did that with Ivan. You know, with Ivan, you might get away with it because he's an easier guy to read. He's really not a nuanced fighter, whereas Regis Prograis is, and he's a far more concussive puncher than Ivan Baranchyk. So, you know, you gotta wonder. That's why I'm left with that question post-fight, that it was a fight that I felt Josh Taylor had all the tools to win, but he didn't go about it in the way that I expected him to. And while it was ballsy, while it does exhibit a bit of bravado in front of the hometown crowd, it wasn't exactly a risk that Josh needed to take. That he could have fought this fight on the outside, chose to fight it on the inside. Okay, gave up his height to do it. But if you give up your height to Regis, different situation. You're putting yourself in the line of fire against some really heavy artillery. I'll say that I don't want to sound like I'm underwhelmed by what Josh put forth against Ivan Baranchyk. I don't want it to sound like I'm underwhelmed by his performance so much as I'm curious because of who he's fighting next. Are they going to make the necessary adjustments to offset and work around Regis Prograis' power? You know, because it is a different fight. But I don't want to sound underwhelmed by it. You know, Josh, Regis, they have both lived up to many people's expectations. When the tournament was announced, a lot of people, they said that they felt it's going to come down to Josh and Regis, that those are going to be the two guys that once the smoke settles and everybody else has been kicked out of the fucking way, it's going to come down to those two guys. And both of them have lived up to those expectations. So I in no way, shape, or form want to sound like I'm underwhelmed by Josh's performance. I'm just wondering, is he going to show another layer of his game? A layer that could effectively offset and neutralize the power of Regis Prograis. Because if he goes in there and he's fighting the fight mid-range to inside like he just did with Ivan, well, you're not neutralizing that guy's power, you're making yourself subject to it. So we'll see what happens. For now, congratulations to Josh Taylor for becoming the IBF 140-pound champion. And finally, we have the WBC heavyweight title fight, the grudge match, that didn't last very fucking long, though nobody really thought it would. The grudge match, the bad blood fight between the heavyweight champion, Deontay Wilder, the WBC heavyweight champion, Deontay Wilder, and the challenger, his mandatory challenger, Dominic Breazeale. And this is a fight that anybody could have forecasted the outcome of this fight. That if you've ever seen
Dominic Breazeale,
if you've ever seen Dominic Breazeale in action, you know, he's got a shaky jab, leaky defense, very upright kind of fighter, stays kind of close to the center line. This is a guy whose claim to fame is, in all honesty, his ability to take punishment. But even that denotes that he's taking punishment. So you put that kind of guy in there with a guy who's a knockout puncher, a guy who arguably has the most concussive punch in the entire weight class. Well, what the fuck do you think is gonna happen? Bad blood or no bad blood? Virgil Hunter or no Virgil Hunter? I mean, how much can a guy change in one camp, you understand? So this more or less was an outcome that anybody could have forecasted. You don't get cool points for this one because this was an easy pick to make. Deontay Wilder by way of knockout. Yet post-fight, I'm seeing the overzealous fan reactions of what are Deontay Wilder's fans. Deontay Wilder's fans who but 2 years ago were the same guys calling Dominic Breazeale a bum, back when he was undefeated, back when Anthony Joshua beat him. These are the same guys, the ones that are impressed today. These were the same guys that were calling Dominic Breazeale a bum when Joshua beat him. So if he was a bum 2 years ago, when he was undefeated, if he was a bum 2 years ago when Joshua beat him, then why the fuck are you guys so impressed 2 years later when Wilder beats him?
I don't get it.
Oh, I know. Let me guess. It's because Wilder finished him in 1 round, whereas Joshua finished him in 7. That's why you guys are busting out of your shirts, pulling out your tits, waving your pom-poms, the whole production. That's why you guys are doing it. Because Wilder finished an opponent, a common opponent with Anthony Joshua, because he finished the common opponent faster than Joshua did. That's why you guys are all over the place right now. You're so impressed. You weren't impressed when Joshua beat the guy, but you're impressed when Wilder beats him because he did it faster.
Okay.
Well, I hate to rain on your parade. You know, I hate to do that. I hate to burst your bubble. But Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, they got 3 common opponents. Not just Dominic Breazeale. They got 3 common opponents. Jason Gavern, Eric Molina, and Dominic Breazeale. And while Deontay Wilder might have finished Dominic Breazeale faster than Anthony Joshua did, Anthony Joshua finished Jason Gavern and Eric Molina faster than Wilder did. So are you sure you want to have a vetted interest in that kind of stuff? I mean, that borders on a triangle theory. And we all know that triangle theories, generally speaking, they don't work. But if you want to have a vetted interest in who finishes the common opponent faster, well then, Joshua's done that 2 more times than Wilder has. So how much stock do you really want to have in that, Wilder fans? Where Deontay Wilder needed 4 rounds to beat Jason Gavern, Anthony Joshua only needed 3. And where Deontay Wilder needed 9 rounds to finish Eric Molina, Anthony Joshua, once again, only needed 3. So Joshua has dispatched more common opponents faster than Deontay Wilder has. This is the first time Deontay Wilder has actually finished a common opponent faster than Anthony Joshua has. Now, I reiterate, only casuals have a vetted interest in these kinds of triangle theories because ultimately, the outcome of a fight is determined by the styles and the physical attributes of the two fighters that are actually in the ring. That's what really determines the outcome. But I see all these guys, you know, they're waving all these pom-poms, talking all this shit, and I'm thinking to myself, did these guys not know before this fight that Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, they already got two common opponents, and the both of them, Joshua finished them faster than Wilder.
So pump the brakes.
So if that kind of stuff impresses you, then where you been, you know? It's a lot of silliness, man. Look, I told you guys already, Wilder's fans, they treat him like the retarded kid. They treat him like the retarded kid in class. They try to give him extra credit for doing basic shit that he's expected to do. You're supposed to be able to do that. But to these guys, that's the most impressive shit in the world. You know, these guys, they'll say, he'll definitely knock Anthony Joshua out because Joshua, he doesn't have any head movement. I want to know how much head movement Wilder was exhibiting when he literally walked into a left hook with his hands down from Eric Molina. The same Eric Molina that didn't even so much as land a punch on Anthony Joshua. I mean, I know that once again borders on a triangle theory, but these guys seem to have a vetted interest in triangle theories. So I'm wondering how they might have missed that. How did they gloss over that while, you know, making assessments based on common opponents? Because if who beats a common opponent faster matters to you, then it appears that Deontay Wilder still has some catching up to do. Because right now it's 2-1 in favor of Anthony Joshua. Yeah, no, man, look, is this the first time Deontay Wilder's said something brazenly stupid or promoted some kind of open double standard? Of course not. These guys aren't in the business of making sense. They're just looking for any means and any method to make Deontay Wilder seem special. He goes in there, knocks out a guy that they were calling a bum 2-3 years ago when he was undefeated, before he even lost a fight. They were calling that guy a bum. Wilder goes in there, knocks out a guy that they were calling a bum 2 years ago. 2 years later, I guess it's supposed to mean something. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but neither do Deontay Wilder's fans. So what the fuck do you expect? I could have told you that post-fight, these fucking guys are going to be all over the place. They're going to be climbing up the walls. They're going to be elated that Deontay Wilder has another knockout in the highlight reel. He seems more interested in fighting anyone but Anthony Joshua. Because even Jim Gray had to plead with this guy that we don't want to see you fighting all these other guys. We don't want to see a Breazeale or Ortiz. We don't want to see any of that shit. We want to see the Wilder fight. And what's Wilder say? What's Wilder say? It's not my opinion that he said it. He said people need to be patient. People need to wait. So you'll excuse me for saying so. You'll excuse me when I say that no, I am not impressed. This is what I said would happen. This is what I expected, and that's what happened. So what is there to be impressed about? Sorry, kids. Those eggs need more bacon.